and I'll be talking about testing your React Native apps the Cypress way. Thank you all for coming, and I hope the next 20 minutes you'll get some knowledge of Cypress and it will make you motivated to try Cypress. So, I'm a software engineer at Thunkable, which is a Y Combinator backed startup in San Francisco, where I currently live. I'm an avid reader, and you'll always find me with a book in my free time. Also, I love traveling, especially to try out new cuisines. A brief intro to the company I work in. Thunkable is a no code app building tool wherein you can develop apps for Android, iOS, and web. We also help in publishing the built apps to Android Play Store and the App Store. And the simple drag and drop design canvas and powerful logic blocks allow you to unlock all the benefits of a native mobile and tablet device. So the Thunkable product is based on React Native, and we are currently using Cypress to test on a product level. You can check out the website here, and also for you guys, we have a special promotion. You can get a whopping 75% off on the Pro membership using this promo code here. You can use it yourself, or you can give it to somebody else who is in need. So before we move forward, let's take a quick look at the agenda. In the next 20 minutes, you will learn what Cypress is, the motivation for Cypress, its various features, the Cypress ecosystem, and I generally like to do a live demo, but due to the time crunch, I will be going through a sample test and explaining the basics of that particular test file. And in the end, we'll be looking at some of the Cypress resources we have and how to do end-to-end testing on your React Native apps. So what is Cypress? It's a complete end-to-end testing experience, which is written in JavaScript. And as opposed to the other existing testing frameworks, Cypress is non-Selenium based and developer and QA friendly. It's open source, and due to its real-time reload feature, it's really super fast. So if we look at a super rough development timeline, these are the steps we generally follow. So the first three roughly being planning, development, and deploying, and the rest being staging and QA and production. So generally, all the end-to-end tests are performed in the staging and production steps. In the staging, the QA does the end-to-end testing, and in production, the users generally do it for us and find bugs. So the Cypress team recognize that the cost of fixing the bugs, so here the cost means not only the financial aspects, but the additional time required. So the cost of fixing bugs increased as we go ahead in the timeline from planning to production, wherein identifying bugs or shortcomings in the planning stage is the best case scenario, while in production, of course, it's the worst case. So why don't we perform the end-to-end tests in the development phase itself? If this is done properly, it would save the additional efforts and also save the development time. So this was the motivation behind developing Cypress. And what makes Cypress different than the already existing tools that we have for testing? So Cypress takes snapshots as your test runs. So simply hovering your test commands in the command log, we can see exactly what happened at each step. So it's a total user-friendly interface in which we can look through all the commands individually. And also it captures videos and screenshots when the tests fail. So it's really very handy. And Cypress automatically reloads whenever you make changes to the test. So you can see commands executing real time in your app while you develop it. And that's why it's way faster for developers to create the tests. Cypress also provides way to debug directly using the external tools like Chrome Dev Tools, which generally web developers are familiar with. And this makes one less thing for us to learn. And if you have experience in writing tests, you might be familiar with adding extra wait times and sleeps to your test. So with Cypress, this is done automatically using its assertions and commands, and this saves a lot of development time. Also, Cypress automatically captures screenshots if there are any failures in your test. And also it records videos of the entire test suite while we are running the tests. So Cypress automatically controls the entire automation process from top to bottom by using the Node.js backend, and it has a graphical user interface. So this puts it in a unique position to understand everything happening in and outside of the browser. So this means Cypress is capable of delivering more consistent results than any other testing tool which is currently available, and that's what makes Cypress very different. Now let's look at the Cypress ecosystem. It's majorly made up of two entities. It consists of free, open source, locally installed test runner. So first, Cypress helps you set up and start writing tests while you build your application locally. That is while you are developing itself. So that's where the test runner comes in, and Cypress supports test-driven development at its best using the test runner. Later, the second entity is the dashboard service. So after building up the suite of tests and integrating Cypress with your CI provider, the dashboard service can record your test runs. So from the dashboard, you can manage users, you can integrate with GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, Slack, and even Jira. And it also provides analytics to offer insights into your test metrics, which honestly prove to be very useful. And with Cypress, you can run tests on Firefox, Brave, and Chrome family browsers, including Edge and Electron. So as long as you don't use Internet Explorer, you have nothing to worry about. So let's see into installing Cypress. Cypress is a desktop app that can be installed on your computers, and it supports Mac, Linux, and Windows. Also, if you use npm install to install Cypress, you will need Node 14 and above, which generally all the developers working in JavaScript generally have. And running either of these commands will install Cypress locally as a dev dependency. And more info on it can be found on their installation guide, which is very thorough and very simple to understand. So you might have a question that what to do if I'm using TypeScript. So Cypress starts off with everything being in a JavaScript file. But if you want to develop in TypeScript, you can rename the test file with the TypeScript extension, but only doing that can cause some problems because VS Code can think that is Mocha or Jasmine and doesn't know what Cypress or CI is. So to fix that, we can add a tsconfig.json file inside the Cypress directory. So the file informs that these are the compiler options and the only type that exists is TypeScript. And we can include all the TypeScript files, and adding this improves the developer experience, and then you can include TypeScript in your code. It's as simple as that. So this is a sample Cypress test. Generally at this point, I give a short demo of around 10 to 15 minutes, wherein I create a test and I show how it is run in the test runner, etc. But due to the time crunch, I'm going to explain a small test. So this is a Cypress test file, and generally the test files have the extension of .spec.js. So it's like .spec.js. And we'll look into how each component in the test file is arranged and also look at what they mean. So Cypress believes in getting more done with less typing. It follows a chain syntax, and similar to jQuery, it uses query elements. So Cypress leverages jQuery's powerful selector engine to help make tests familiar and readable to the modern web developers. So as you can see here, the describe keyword is simply a way to group our tests. And it takes two arguments. The first is the name of the test group, and the second is the callback function. And we use the it keyword for an individual test case. So we can have multiple test cases inside one test group. And it again takes two arguments, a string explaining what the test should do. So it is easier as developers to understand what every test does, and a callback function which contains an actual test. So let's see what the Cypress code would read as. So in here, we tell Cypress to visit the page at /post/new. Then we find the input with the class as post title. And in that input, Cypress types my first post. Then we find the input element with class post body. And in that, we type hello world. So we get the input with hello world in it. We find the UI element that contains the text submit and then click on it. So basically, it's a button. Then we grab the browser URL and ensure that includes /post/my first post. And we find the h1 tag and ensure that it contains the text my first post. So as you can see, it's as simple as that. It's like reading through a text and very easy to understand what the code is doing. There are many more methods and selectors provided by Cypress to support all your testing requirements. And even though Cypress is open source, it is very well documented. As you can see, this is a snapshot from the documentation. You can find many courses, sample applications, and workshops if you go to Cypress.io. Um, I would recommend going through them by choosing the framework you use and trying out the samples. And they are very helpful in understanding the nitty-gritties of various applications you can think of or you use in your existing project. So just go here and give Cypress a try. Next, we are moving on to end-to-end testing on React Native apps. So if you have used React Native, you definitely need to use testing in that. So currently, very less tools are available for performing end-to-end tests on React Native apps. And performing end-to-end testing has been less than an ideal scenario until now. So the tooling for end-to-end testing on the web is very simple. And thanks to Expo for Web, you can now use Cypress to easily perform end-to-end testing of your React Native apps, which can be done in the browser. So React Native apps are, as we all know, known to run on your mobile devices. So you code in JavaScript and you develop for mobile. And Cypress can run tests on responsive layouts. So if you want to run your React Native test on a mobile device like a layout, you can simply change the layout size in the task runner to match up the mobile device and you're good to go. It is as simple as that. Also, Cypress can access the elements from the React Native components we have in our project. So using class name or target elements based on the CSS attributes, which we have in our CSS. But the drawback of using the class name is that the same names are used in your CSS as well as JavaScript, which can lead to you making changes when your file changes. So your test changes when your file changes. So according to the Cypress team, the best practice is to use data attributes. So they provide contextual selectors and isolate them from your CSS or JavaScript changes. And oftentimes users run into problems targeting the elements because sometimes applications, names, or dynamic classes change or selectors break from developing changes to CSS styles or JavaScript behaviors. So please do add the data attributes in your code to make it easier to target elements in Cypress tests. Now let's look at how we can write component tests based on individual frameworks. So if you're using a React component, you will need to install Cypress tools for React. Once you install it using the command, you need to configure how Cypress will locate component spec files, that is the test files, after we create a spec file next to the component definition, which we have to test. So right here, right now, button component is to be tested. So we'll create a spec file in the same directory on the same hierarchy as the button component. And the spec will consist of this code. As you can see, a Cypress component test contains a mount function and assertions about the button component which it has to render. So a test will interact with the component as the user would and it will give the Cypress API commands like click, type, and flow, focus, blur, etc., which we already saw in the normal Cypress test. So the only thing which is different in writing component tests is installing and then using the mount function. Otherwise, all the Cypress commands and all the other structure will be the same. And we have a similar structure for Vue. So if you're using Vue, you can still use Cypress, wherein we install the dependencies and use the mount function for the Hello World component. You can see the example right here. It is similar to React, just it is in Vue. So now that you know that Cypress works from within the browser, so you might be wondering, how does it support HTTPS? So Cypress does some pretty interesting things under the hood to make testing HTTPS sites work. It enables you to control and stub at the network level. So therefore, Cypress must assign and manage the browser certificates to be able to modify the traffic in real time. So it is highly secure, and as developers, we don't have to worry about security at all when we use Cypress. Also, Cypress tests can be run in continuous integration, and we can configure Cypress in various CI providers like Circle CI, GitHub Actions, GitLab CI, and AWS Codebell too. And Cypress can also be used in Angular apps. So if you're an Angular developer, you can still use Cypress and create reliable end-to-end tests for them. If you're an Angular developer, you might be using Protractor for testing. And while Protractor has been a popular end-to-end testing tool for Angular and AngularJS apps, it is no longer included in the new Angular projects. So Cypress also provides a migration guide to help migrate from Protractor to Cypress. And all these things are already mentioned in the documentation. So you can go there, you can follow the steps, and you can get what you want when you want to migrate from Protractor to Cypress. So yeah, that's it for the additional comments. And there's a lot to Cypress that can be covered in such a short time. Uh, so I recommend to go through the documentation and the resources we talked about. I also plan on adding the video demo, which I was talking about, so that you guys can take a look of how everything works. And I guarantee that there will be something for everyone's use case. And thank you so much. I hope you get motivated to give Cypress a go. Feel free to ask any questions, and you can also message me on Twitter. This is my Twitter handle. I'm open to questions there too, and I'm generally very active. So you can DM me, or you can just message me you can post something, and I'll reply. That's it from me. Thank you all for listening, and hope you give Cypress a try.